Avoid all media to the extent you can, and then we'll see you back here. One thing you need to keep with you is that letter with the sticker on it and your number.
Okay.
Because that's your pass to get in here. And so it's very important that you keep that safe and bring it with you.
Okay, and just in case, will I be getting another letter to like remind me of the date and time and everything, or is there a number I should call?
You can always call the jury number. Generally, if there's a change, we reach out to you.
Okay.
We might do that in this case in any event, just because it's going to be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably send a reminder call to everybody. But if you don't hear from us, you can always call back. But also, March 29th at 9 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thank you very much,
any questions?
sir. No, I don't think so.
Then you can go with the deputy.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. We have the next group is a new group to read the initial instructions. So we're going to do that. I'm just curious if you have any sense for how many we'll be able to get through before the end of the day at 4:30. Keeping in mind we have a 20-minute break probably after the next juror. That was juror number 9, which is a grand total of 6 for the day. I'm thinking of keeping 3.
I think that's reasonable.
We're off the record, by the way, but we can stay on. We can stay on audio and video, but we're off the record.
Judge, I think 3 to 4 at the most. Taking a look, probably 3 is more realistic. It's 2, 3.
Mr. Nelson,
I'm just taking a peek here quick at my
okay.
notes. I'd say 3 to 4. Keep 4.
Okay. Let's keep the first 4 after this and cut the next 2 loose for 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Cut them loose now.
No, let's do
Right.
do the review on all 6.
Okay.
Send all of them back.
Except for 23 and 26.
Correct. Okay. And the difference. Are you bringing everybody in?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, members of the panel, if you could just kind of spread out and take any seat that works for you. And you can, it's not like church, you can sit in the front row if you'd like. Excellent. All right, thank you. You may be seated. Well, good afternoon. First of all, can you all hear me? Because if you cannot, we have hearing assistance devices. All right, I'm seeing that everybody seems to be able to hear. My name is Pete Cahill, and I'm one of the judges of the district court. And you have been summoned, as you know, as potential jurors in this case of State of Minnesota versus Derek Chauvin, which is a criminal case related to the death of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. A person charged with a crime has a right to a fair trial before an impartial judge and an impartial jury. In order to make sure that the jurors who are selected are impartial, the law provides that the court and the attorneys for the parties may ask questions to all prospective jurors, which must be answered under oath. First, thank you for filling out and returning the questionnaire that was mailed to you. Your contribution to the important and serious matter at hand is best assured by continuing to provide full and complete answers to the questions that you will be asked today and possibly tomorrow. Those questions will follow up on issues from the questionnaire and possibly other topics. Now, after the questioning is over, the attorneys will have the right to excuse some of you from service on this jury, and I may excuse others of you for what is called cause. Not mean that you are not a fair person, and you should not take offense in being excused. I also ask that you not take any offense to any question that you might be asked. We must pry, to some extent, in order to explore some opinions you might hold and to hear about experiences that you have had that might affect your ability to serve in this case. The defendant, Mr. Chauvin, has been charged with murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the second degree. During trial, charges may be added to or subtracted from these charges because that's in the normal course, but those are the charges as it stands today. Now, to the charges, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty, which is a denial of each and every material allegation in the charges. And I'm going to have the participants introduce themselves in the case, beginning with the attorneys for the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Swisher on behalf of the state of Minnesota.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christina Marinakis, and I'm assisting with the prosecution.
I'm Joshua Larson. I'm also with the state. Thank you.
And Mr. Nelson, if you could introduce yourself and your team.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Nelson. I'm the attorney for Derek Chauvin. Behind me is my assistant, Amy Voss.
Thank you. Now, there may be other attorneys from the state also appearing, and so I'll ask you to keep in mind whether you know Matthew Frank, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Aaron Eldridge, Attorney Jerry Blackwell, or anybody else who works for the Attorney General's office. Is there anybody who has that familiarity? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Does anybody recognize anybody who was in the courtroom who has introduced themselves, any of the parties or attorneys? All right, I'm seeing no hands. Now, you have been given a copy, well, actually, did anybody recognize anybody in the courtroom, I should say, not just the parties or attorneys? Okay, no hands. You have been given a copy of a list of potential witnesses, a rather long list, I acknowledge. And if you have reviewed it, you'll be asked when you are questioned individually whether you know anybody on that list. So please keep the list with you when you come in for your individual questioning. And if you've marked anybody, we'd like to know that. Now, before I turn it over to the attorneys, you have to keep in mind that one of the things they may not do in jury selection is to instruct you on the law. But I do want you to be aware of some of the basic concepts that apply in all criminal cases, so that you may keep them in mind as you answer the court's and the attorney's questions. So, I will instruct you as follows. First, the charges against the defendant are not evidence, and they create no inference of guilt. No member of the jury should in any way permit himself or herself to be prejudiced against the defendant because a charge has been made against him or because he has been placed on trial. The defendant is presumed innocent of the charges made against him. And in order for you to find the defendant guilty, the state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant does not have to prove his innocence. The presumption of innocence remains with the defendant throughout the trial unless and until he has been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt according to the law and the evidence admitted at trial. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is such proof as ordinary persons would act upon in their most important affairs. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It does not mean a fanciful or capricious doubt, nor does it mean beyond all possibility of doubt. Now, if you serve on this jury, you and your fellow jurors will be the sole judges of whether a witness is to be believed and of the weight to be given their testimony. There are no hard and fast rules to guide you in this respect. But in determining believability and weight of testimony, jurors may take into consideration the witness's interest or lack of interest in the outcome, relationship to the parties, the ability and opportunity to know, remember, and relate the facts, their manner, their age and experience, their frankness and sincerity, or the lack thereof, the reasonableness or the unreasonableness of their testimony in light of all the other evidence in the case, and any other factors that bear on believability and weight. If on this jury, you should rely in the last analysis upon your own experience, good judgment, and common sense. Now, there are things you should not do during jury selection. You are not investigators. You are not to go out and do any looking, and you are not to ask people about this matter. You are not to use the internet to look for information about this case or about the law. Above all, you must not talk to anyone who is involved, the lawyers or the witnesses. Do not be offended if the attorneys, parties, witnesses, or spectators do not speak to you. They know it would be improper to contact you during except through the normal processes of jury selection, and they will confine themselves to a brief greeting. Now, during the selection process, your family and friends will be curious as to what you are doing. You may tell them you are on a panel of potential jurors in a criminal case, and that is all you should tell them. And since that is all you should tell family and friends, that is all you should tell the general public. So, during these proceedings, please refrain from using Facebook, Twitter, or other social media to announce that you are a potential juror or to comment on this trial. You may access those social media tools, but please do not publish any information about the case or your thoughts about the case. You do not have to stay away from people and refuse to speak to them. Do whatever you wish, but do not talk about the case, and do not talk at all to anyone involved in it. Now, because of the nature of the charges, this case will receive media coverage. Do not read about this case in the newspapers or online, and do not listen to news about it on radio or television. Now, this trial, including jury selection, is being televised, but no video of you or any other juror will be taken at any time, now or during trial if you are selected. Also, your name will not be used in the courtroom. You will only be referred to by your random number. The audio of anything you say will be broadcast, unless we need to discuss something deeply personal or extremely sensitive or embarrassing, and I specifically order that the audio not be broadcast. In that case, you will still have to answer questions on the record, but without audio or video broadcast. So with that, I'm going to send all of you back into the waiting room area, except for juror number 10, and you can remain behind. And Mr. Schaefer has further instructions for several of you. So if you go with the deputy. Okay, juror 10, if you could come up here to the witness stand. And I'll put my mask back on. Apologies, I'm a little missing one of my sheets. All right. Before I turn it over to the attorneys, I want to go over a few things. First of all, I'm going to swear you in so that all your answers are under oath. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror?
I will.
All right, thank you. First of all, you did fill out a questionnaire. Thank you for taking the time to do that. The first question I have, was everything true on that questionnaire?
To the best of my ability at the time.
All right. And you kind of anticipated my next question, which is, do you have any changes or additions to the questionnaire? Because sometimes after you've had a chance to reflect on it, after you turn it in, things come up or you realize something was inaccurate. You're not going to get in trouble by correcting it. It's what we're looking for is the honest feedback from you. And so if there is anything, can you think of anything right now?
Well, the one question where it asks, do you want to serve on this jury?
Correct.
And I put down not sure, but the more I think about things, I guess my answer would be no.
Okay, tell me about that. What has kind of moved you in that direction?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the publicity that's going to be associated with this case, and the potential I guess the potential outcome of this case this is going to be a very highly publicized case, and there's a lot riding on this case. And to me, I read in the article, or the information you sent us, that jurors' names will be publicized after the case is done.
At some point, yes.
At some point, right. And that kind of raised issue with me, because I felt, if our names are publicized, could we become potential targets for certain organizations? And that makes me feel uneasy.
A little apprehensive.
Right, exactly.
Okay. I think you also mentioned the concerns about COVID-19, and we've done everything the health department said we should, but nevertheless, are those concerns enough that it might bother you during trial?
Well, at the time I filled the questionnaire out, we were under lockdown. And so at that point in time, it was a very serious concern of mine, because we didn't know where we were going with this, with COVID-19. But at this point in time, my reservations are somewhat relieved with the vaccines, probably getting some herd immunity out there, and more lifting of restrictions. I believe I'm a little more at ease on that now at this point.
Okay. And you also mentioned that you are in the accounting industry.
Correct.
And this is busy time.
Busy time.
Do you think that it's so busy that you're probably going to be working after court sessions?
I would probably have to, and it would probably, I do travel somewhat with my job to my clients. So given the potential length of a trial, it may impact my ability to service clients completely, because if I travel, I can't be here and be there at the same time.
Right. And we do anticipate that the trial would be about 4 weeks, starting on March 29th. What do you think with that time frame?
It's a pretty bad time.
Okay. Let me return to your safety concerns. And I'm not questioning the legitimacy of the concerns you have. Not saying one way or the other, what the likelihood of any concern should be. But the fact that it is a concern for you, if you're on the jury, you can't let that seep in and affect your decision. So in other words, you can't say, well, I think that it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, so I could vote for guilty, but I'm worried what will happen. Or the opposite. I don't feel it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and so I should find him not guilty, but I don't know what will happen. Do you think that's a concern that we should be thinking about?
Well, I feel I'm a reasonable person and can separate facts from fiction. However, that thought, I believe, would still be there. Yes.
All right.
I don't know if it would influence me. I mean, I would try not to, but if it's in if you're thinking about these things, how can you just eliminate it from your mind? Let's just say.
Okay. I'm just going to talk to the lawyers privately for just a quick second, so hang tight.
Drag me, dude. Exactly. Oh, I just washed myself. I can wash myself. Nice and clean. Oh, Jalen's over here. Come here, Jay. Come here. You need to be cleaned. No, I don't. You do. Aw, you lucky you were holding me. Where are you? Where are you?
Juror number 10. I'm going to excuse you from this jury, and I'll tell you, it's mostly I'm concerned that we are in your high season of work, and if you're working after hours, the last person I had on a jury who did that fell asleep during the trial, which is not something we ever like. But also that combined with your safety concerns and how that would weigh on your mind while hearing evidence. I think it's appropriate. I'm going to excuse you from this panel. And so you're relieved from jury duty for this round and until you get a summons years from now. Okay? The deputy on the way out will collect some things from you, but otherwise, thank you for your candid answers and taking the time to fill out the questionnaire.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Half a minute, almost 70,000. I got 70,000. Yeah, definitely too much spots. Actually, quick. Yeah,
Okay, sir. Have a seat.
nice match on the goal.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to ask you a few questions before we turn it over to the attorneys. First of all, I have to swear you in to make sure that all your answers are under oath. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. If I could have you pull up right to the microphone to make sure that we can capture things. My hearing is not what it used to be. First question I'm going to ask you is, you filled out the questionnaire, and thank you for doing so. Was everything on that questionnaire true as far as your answers?
Am I on a time limit here? Can I just think about it? I'm just trying to put my thoughts together, not trying to,
You take whatever time you need to answer the question. And since you filled it out quite a while ago, well, if there's anything, that's fine. It's just a question of if something comes up, I want you to feel free to add to it or change it. You're not going to get in trouble. Because very often people fill out a questionnaire and then they reflect and they go, well, probably should have said this or that. And that generally will come up more in the questions that the lawyers will be asking. But in the interim, if there was something that you came in saying, well, once I get in front of the judge, I got to tell him this. Anything like that?
could you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, is there anything in that questionnaire that just right now you think you need to change or amend?
Pull up, so we gotta answer it right now.
No, I can't think of anything.
Okay. And if anything does come to your mind during the questioning, feel free to volunteer. All right. When you filled out the questionnaire, there was an advisory not to read any articles or follow this in the media. Sometimes, inadvertently, you get exposed despite your best efforts. You see a headline, maybe a friend says, oh, did you hear about this part of the case? Did anything like that happen to you? Were you exposed to any substance or facts about this case or anything about the process or the people involved? between when you filled out the questionnaire and now?
I've had people bring it up around me when we were spending some time together, and I didn't add to the conversation or like mention anything about my jury service.
Okay. Was that uncomfortable for you?
I just took it as a sign just to not say anything
Okay.
or say little, like nothing about the jury at all.
All right. Fair enough. And you know something about this case because just about everybody who comes in here knows something about the case, or at least have certain thoughts about the case based on what they've read or seen in the media. But if you're on the jury, you have to put all that aside on what you hear and see in the courtroom. Do you think you could do that?
Yeah, I think I could do it.
Okay. And we really put you in a tough spot because we say you don't know much about the case except what you've read, and that might not be accurate. So can you put it all aside, and we're with very little other indication of what the evidence is, we're asking you to give us your best guess on whether you can put everything aside. And your answer is yes, you can.
I'm really this is a lot to me right now. I could take the facts together and say everything aside, all my biases and all that, but this process is like making me kind of uncomfortable.
Sure.
And just a lot to take in at the same time.
In fact, I'll go right to that because the last question on the questionnaire was, why do you feel that, or you said, do you want to serve as a juror in this case? And the answer was no. Too much responsibility, don't want to be a part of a trial the whole nation will be paying attention to. Personal opinion conflicts with participating as a juror. I'm in trade school and COVID-19 has been cutting into my education. So there's a lot to unwrap there. And how old are you?
I'm 19.
So you're 19, we catch you right after you become eligible to vote and serve on a jury. And it sounds like this seems like an intimidating prospect for you.
Yeah.
Is that a fair, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Well, it's not causing me fear, but it's just making me anxious and just.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think about like further on down the road, like how things are going to be. Because when I came here today, like I couldn't even see the parking. I didn't even realize that it was being guarded, and there was a draw gate. So that was something new for me too. All the barricades around the building.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to the attorneys to ask you some more follow-up questions about that. So I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson to inquire.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for being here today, and I appreciate your sensitivity and concerns. And this is a lot to take in, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you some questions. Want to follow up on a few things, and not in trouble. No one's trying to trick you. We're just trying to get to whether you'd be a good juror for this case. Not only for Mr. Chauvin, but also for the state of Minnesota. You understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you and I were to meet in a social situation, tell me 2 or 3 things you'd want me to know about you after that conversation.
Is this like a casual conversation, or like do I know like what your occupation is?
No, we're just talking. 2 guys talking.
I like to think about things on a deeper level. I like to conceptualize. I'm very interested in talking about I'm very open-minded. I like to think about more things other than what's just present at the moment. not really sure what you're asking for.
I think you answered what I was asking for, and I
Okay.
appreciate your response, okay? When you first got the notice that you were going to be doing jury, or called for jury service, what was your first reaction to that notice?
Like, why me? I didn't think it was, I didn't think I'd be somebody that could be selected for this case. It was never a thought in my mind until I saw it on the paper and filled out the questionnaire.
So you kind of had a why me moment.
Yeah.
Did you ponder that question, and what did you come up with?
There's a lot of philosophical things I could say, but I'm just gonna say it was just a random selection. The machine or whatever picked my number or picked my license, however it goes, and that's the reason why I'm here right now. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm also curious as to the philosophical response.
I don't know. Maybe I was just chosen to be a part of this trial. Just, like, how do I explain it? Just the way my life has been going, just the experiences I had, kind of just doesn't feel like a coincidence that I'm here, a part of this trial.
So is it that I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or trivialize anything, but you sort of feel like a purpose or a higher calling or some reason that you were chosen to be, even though it's a random process to select people?
But, you guys came up.
I wouldn't say it's like my purpose to be here. I just think maybe for whatever reason it is, I'm here right now. Maybe there's something I need to learn from the series of events, or something I gotta see for myself to know. I don't know. That's what I was trying to say with the philosophical. Like, it's case by case. I don't have a direct answer for everything. It's just, I guess it's just how I'm feeling at that time, and like what answers I can give to it when
Okay. I appreciate that. So I guess you obviously know the case.
yeah.
You know why you're here. And you formed some opinions about the case, personal opinions, right?
Yeah.
And because I believe in your response answering why you didn't want to be a juror was because of your opinions. Your personal opinions conflict with participating as a jury.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
I feel like this whole process is just gonna what's the word I'm thinking of? It's gonna snowball. It's gonna like get bigger and bigger as the days go by, and I don't know if I want to deal with all what comes with that, the media attention, the people outside the courthouse, all the guards and stuff. It's a lot for me to take in.
Sir, I understand that it's a very intimidating process.
Yeah.
That's probably even more intimidating because of the virtue of this case, and it's even more intimidating by virtue of the maelstrom of events surrounding it, right?
No, not with these guys around.
But have you formed personal opinions about what happened back in May?
Yeah.
And your response to why you don't want to be a juror in this case is because you feel conflicted based on those personal opinions. Is that fair?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I feel like I'd be more willing to participate. I mean, I'm participating right now, but I feel like I wouldn't be so conflicted to participate if it was a different case.
Hear ye. I am the king of
So I guess I'm just going to ask you outright, what are your personal opinions about this case?
I think this whole thing is just very divisive. Me being a part of this case kind of feels like to me that I'm adding to the divisiveness, not necessarily saying that that it's done on purpose. It's just I just think forward in the future about how like what my life is gonna be like after the case, and like if people are gonna, see videos or know that I was there. There's a lot of people I know, and I just don't want them to know that I was a juror on the case. I just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to discuss it with other people like that.
So the bottom line. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess the bottom line is that we're trying to determine if you could be a fair and an impartial juror in this case. Would your opinions prevent you from being a fair and an impartial juror?
I'm not sure because I don't know. Do you just want me to tell you some things I think and we go from there? Because
Sure.
Margaret, what would you like to know first?
Why don't you tell me some things that you think, and we'll go from there.
From what I know, the MPD has a history of corruption and just I just hear that there's a lot of bad cops in the MPD. I just don't trust. I don't really trust law enforcement like that. I just feel a little bit intimidated when they come around.
So can I just interrupt you because we're going to kind of go back and forth, right?
Yeah.
As I understand, you said that the Minneapolis Police Department, in your opinion, has a history of corruption.
Yeah.
And do you have personal experience with that, or do you have friends who've had experience with that, or is that predicated on what people talk about?
Part of it is just from what I heard, and past things that happened in Minneapolis, but also because my dad was racially profiled in a traffic stop, and he doesn't break the law.
Okay. So you have a family member who has had a negative experience with the Minneapolis Police Department.
Yeah.
Okay. So just looking at your role here as a juror would be to be fair and impartial, to listen to evidence, all of the evidence as it's presented, and weigh the question of guilty or not guilty based on what you see in court. Do you think that you could set aside your personal experiences and your belief of corruption or history of corruption about the Minneapolis Police Department aside as you weigh this question?
conflicted. I can be impartial, but I could be fair and impartial, but I just don't know if I could stay like that, present with all the evidence that I'm going to be seeing and all that. I don't know. I don't know what the evidence is.
So what we're going to do. It's time for our afternoon break. We normally take a 20-minute break at this time. So I'm going to ask that you go with the deputy to go back to the other courtroom, and we'll all take a break, and we're going to come back at, let's say, 3:25. And you can talk in the meantime. And counsel, why don't you come into chambers after a couple minutes. All right, thank you. We're in recess.
Nice. Good job, Shane. That Layla barking, Jay? I'm gonna close down this live stream. I'll be right back. Oh, the mic was on. Oh, shit. Or whatever. Either way, as you see, I'm about to close this damn thing down. It's going to be hard to find people to go against what they've seen, and this is essentially what they're trying to do. So, stay tuned. Day 3 tomorrow. Yes, sir. Fella Good Podcast. You already know.